Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilwoman Barton, Councilman Comber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Carn, and Councilman Wadman. I'm going to get all the new names down after too many years of rattling them off out of memory. So we do have a quorum tonight. Councilman Wilden is going to do our invocation, and Councilman Carn will lead us in our pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this day, and we're grateful to be gathered as a city council this evening to evaluate these various things that are being presented to us to improve the future of our city. And we're so grateful for all those who work and live and serve in this city, and we ask Thee to bless us this evening that we'll be able to make good decisions for the betterment of all. And these things we say in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on this agenda. There are no public hearings tonight. If you are here for public input, please state your name and address for the record. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is anybody here for public input this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input. Item 5, the presentation on cemetery phasing discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Owen, we had a couple consultants that were going to join us remotely. I can't. They could. Dan is on the Zoom call, and Tim. So we have 2 consultants. Dan is in charge of the cemetery design, landscaping, site layout. And then for the civil engineering, the road and the utilities, we have Tim Beal, who may or may not be with us. So they may not join, but if there are specific questions, I asked them to be here. Sarah, can you click to the next slide? So primarily, just to recap, Council, if you remember, we've been working on the site layout. Some of the big design changes were we moved the staging area, the maintenance area to the northeast corner. And the other big update was due to the need that we want this cemetery as soon as possible, and the developer is not developing the neighborhood to the west for quite some time, we have moved the primary access to the south. So you now see this layout has this road, and I've turned on the slope map so you can see the red areas are 30% plus slopes, the yellow are 15-30, just to understand kind of the topography we're dealing with. So the design is this access road would come off where the developer is going to stub. So the white plat boundaries, those are active development, right? That's where the current developer plans to build. Everything in the lighter pink is future. So you can see we're proposing to tie into the end of the westernmost end of the current active development limits. And then we would build an access road up that slope that has some challenges and some costs we'll get into later, but that would allow us to expedite the timing as opposed to waiting for the developer to build from the west. And we think this could actually be the main access for the cemetery. We like that. It allows the access to be more direct versus circuitous through a neighborhood. We could leave the neighborhood connections to the west in the future for secondary access points. But it does require a little bit more money for the access road now, but allows us to expedite that. Sarah, can you go to the next?
Well, and I think multiple access points for like Memorial Day and holidays where there's a lot of traffic, you can have an in and out.
Right.
We just need them both anyways.
Right. So this layout now we've turned, right? So north is to the left, east is to the right, is to the top. East is to the top. So this is the layout that you guys worked on us with the thing. And what we've done is we've looked to consolidate the phasing, right? So because our other phase 1 used to be on the subdivision to the west, now we're going to focus our phase 1 on the access road. That'll help us reduce costs with phase 1 by not having to extend on-site improvements beyond where we are. So you can see the yellow hatching, that's the phase 1. The office would be now next to that access road. If this is our main access road, we want to put the office next to an access road. Before we had the office farther to the west, and now it's gonna be on the south end, right as you enter the cemetery from this new access road with the office.
I contacted the developer about that stub road because they could actually probably redesign and put a lot there instead of having that stub.
Yeah, in fact, yes. They're not ready to talk about that yet, but when they do, we probably could eliminate one of the stub roads and just
Doesn't
go with a
need
single
that
one.
on The one on the far right anymore, we won't wanna have that go into our cemetery anymore, so.
Right, I agree.
Just wanna make sure we don't
Talking about
lose
the
sight of
middle
that.
one,
Huh?
right in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the one that's just stubbed right now to the green, you can see it, the future subdivision on the far right.
This one here.
No,
I'm
the
talking about no,
other one.
way.
Other way. Nope, down.
Right,
Stub.
Yes.
cause
yeah.
they've stubbed it, we're not
Oh,
gonna
I
connect to
see.
that.
Correct, yeah, that's.
We're gonna
sort of-
connect to those two, we're not gonna connect to that third one, so why would we want to have them do?
Right.
I was not following what you were saying.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought you were referring to this one.
No, cause we used to have another road there,
Third
but
one.
now we're not, and so we just need to let them know because
Right.
Okay.
And then I wanted to give you some numbers here. So this gives you an approximate number of how many interment and burial sites you'd have in this new current phase one. So we would still have, we believe, plenty of capacity to get us down the road, and then we could expand this with future funding or when we have other access points. So if our, and that'll kind of, not to get ahead of myself, but one of the constraints we're dealing with again is funding, right? This access road is a little more expensive, you saw the topography. So one of the ways we've done that is try to find a balance of a smaller phase one, but enough sites that we feel it can serve the community for many, many years. So again,
that
that's,
lawn burial, that's stacked,
yes.
so there's 700 plots.
And then you'd have a cremation interments, that's the pink area. So you'd have an area for a cremation garden, I guess.
So we have 700 plots in this hatched area,
Which would accommodate
Correct.
1,400.
there, if they do stacked, yeah.
And that works also for cremation as well. Some people may choose to have their, cremated remains buried in a plot as opposed to that. But we would limit those so that, we're not overwhelming.
Getting like a family squeezing in on one plot or something like that. All the headstones just becomes,
That's why the cremation gardens are popular, because you can
Right.
get 6 in one column.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
That's the access road, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I apologize, that number is wrong, the 2.2 million. That was the old number, so let me clarify, it's actually useful information with the wrong number. That was, if we had gone with the original full phase one, which is bigger, this is what the cost estimate would have been, but we knew that was probably beyond the thing, so this was just a more zoomed in. This slide just kind of shows you the extent of the grading to build this right up that slope, right? You can see the catch slopes, they call it, this hill. So if we go to the next slide, Sarah. So here's where we're at, as far as this, and there's a couple discussion points we can have here. So we are looking approximately at 1.7 million, you can see the breakdown there. The access road and utilities are a little less than half of that, right, about 800,000. Because we not only have to bring this access road, we're gonna bring in water and sewer and things like that. Now, there are some options, you could say, for instance, if we chose to not pave the access road, that paving is about $160,000. Now, that's an 8% access road, so I would recommend we pave it, because in the winter.
Tear out people.
The other consideration, again, I don't know, the council has not made a final budget decision, so I wanna be sensitive of that. The on-site paving was another $173,000. So if we were that close, now that's flatter.
Internal roads.
That's the internal road, so that's flatter, you're on top at that point, so we could get away with doing road-based roads, it could be, drivable surface, but it wouldn't be. And then you can see the on-site landscaping and that kind of stuff is the 430,000. And then, of course, there's going to be some professional service costs to actually put construction drawings together, and we've estimated those, a little over, about 100,000. So that brings us to about 1.7 or 8 million. Honestly, when we met with our consultants earlier in the week, we had hoped that number would come down below 1.5, but unfortunately, that's just, it is what it is. Now, it's still coming down from 2.3, which is what it was if we had a bigger phase one. So we were able to reduce that, but
But this doesn't include the selling of the plots.
this doesn't have a revenue projection, right? This is just a pure
And that
upfront account.
landscaping, phase one, it's not trees on the entire property.
Correct, this is just phase one landscaping, and again, the consultants are available if you have any, but I'll try to answer them.
Now, I do want to circle back, Michael, to your statement. the plots, when we sell a plot, the theory and how these typically work is that money goes into a perpetual maintenance fund, and then the earnings that are earned by that become the funding source for the ongoing maintenance of it. It doesn't pay for additional expansions of the cemetery, generally speaking. We could do that, but then it's a long-term operating expense, and so it depends. Most cities and most cemeteries are set
We
up.
treat it like an enterprise fund.
Right.
Separate, like water and.
Right, right. So we either use that to fund the perpetual maintenance fund, or we could use it for future expansion, but then the operating cost becomes a direct subsidy.
So my question for the consultants would be, what does it do to the landscaping number if we're looking at, if we want to do trees to the whole property on the first go-around? Because you gotta irrigate them too. Just so everything's growing, at least the trees are all growing uniformly.
And starting to grow up here.
Right, and not coming in phases, so, because phase one will have trees this high, phase two, you know.
Well, and just,
And I will clarify, this does not include grading the entire site. So you probably couldn't plant trees where future grading needs to occur.
Grading Phase one side.
A little more than phase one. So the access road needs a lot of fill. So as opposed to us buying material, we can excavate on site. And then as you dig, or in turn, people, you can use that extra dirt to fill back in. So that would be the most cost-effective thing, would be to dig basically our own spoil pit to build the access road and then fill it back up. So again, those areas which are gonna be filled and the other areas that need to be cut, none of those would wanna be plant trees. So Dan could give you a number, but I don't know practically with that much grading, if it would be very viable to, I don't know how much area. We could come up with an area that would be, but you wouldn't be able to touch any areas that were gonna be filled or cut substantially because the tree would be in the way.
I thought we were, in my previous conversations, I thought we were grading the whole site.
that's what I thought. too.
We could, that would just increase this budget.
Sure, by how much?
I could get you
So
that
so
number.
the
do it
current budget is about $1 million.
cost-effectively.
Yeah, the current budgeted amount is about $1 million. So with what you've got in front of you at 1.8,
7.
we're $800,000 shy. We could further, as Jeremy was kind of alluding to, we could certainly leave some things off and try and cut that number back down to come into that. But
We're
again,
actually talking the opposite. We're actually talking about,
yeah,
we
you,
wanna see what the grading cost would be and the trees cost, so the number might even go up.
Well, I could
Right.
even trade off some things, like the paving of the roads
Internal.
internally, we could hold off on that if it meant we could plant more trees across the
Grade and
property.
plan, yeah, I agree. I'd like to just get the numbers if we can, so the consultants are on that too.
Yeah, Dan, can you hear? Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear part of that, yeah. If
Okay.
you grade the whole entire site, that means that whenever you do an interment, all of your dirt from there on out has to leave the cemetery, so you'll be constantly removing dirt. We were, in the design, we're trying to balance between your spoils from interring and the full need of the grading over the whole site. And we got pretty close. But if you end up grading the whole site right now, then you would be paying constantly to remove soil from the cemetery.
Or we leave
You
a small.
grade 3/4 and you
Yeah,
can
we-
It
leave
would be a great 80% and leave.
Right, we could leave a small pit
ravine.
or area that we would slowly fill over time, so we don't.
Well, and there's a lot of ravines in this area where they're looking for dirt, so we'll be,
Yeah, so we can certainly get you that information.
right?
So Jeremy, what drives us from phase one to phase two? What is that? Is it just,
so the original phase two, the 2.3 was doing the whole ring.
Right.
Where we would pave the whole ring and then we'd basically double the number of
Lots.
that were available. And so you see that kind of rectangular, it's not a rectangular, but kind of that lower squared off area. You see we're going out there with the yellow. If we were to take that all the way to that outer access road, that was that original 2.3 number.
so would we go from phase one to phase two based on where we have the budget and we're gonna budget for, or is it?
Budget and when the need is, right? So depending on how popular and how
Okay,
fast
okay.
it fills up.
How fast we sell.
Well, it doesn't fill up, people pre-buy.
Or, well, but as far as reserved of,
We're not predicting a Holocaust here.
Or a disaster?
yeah.
So,
Because and we could, if you want that information now, Dan could help us understand the cost of phase two. Obviously, the access road and the utilities will be done.
Yeah.
So it could, to throw a number out there, it could be 5, 6, 700,000 to do the rest of phase one. What would have been phase one will now be phase two. And we could give you that cost and how many additional interment sites that'll produce.
If it's gonna be years out, I mean, if it's gonna be a year
I'm not the
or,
person to ask on how long this would last. I'm not, I would refer to Dan or somebody else. I don't know.
I'd be kind of curious. I mean, we got 700 plots, potentially 1,400 if you double stack. I'd be curious to see
No,
what phase two is.
The
because-
1,400 is just single, not
It's
even
ju-
double.
Oh, that's single?
So,
Yes.
so we're
It could be.
twice that.
Okay. I thought you were saying we had 700 plots total.
Thanks
That's
for
what I
clarifying that,
asked.
Dan. I think
Yeah.
you-
14
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Sites.
Yes. So, and we also have the cremation garden in this first phase. And so it really is, do we build this and expand? We get the desire for mass grading and stuff, but we do have competing interests. For example, you know, do we get aggressive on trying to solve some of these road issues that we've got in the community? And these are, you know, these are the things that we're trying to balance and give you an opportunity to say,
Well,
what's
I-
your priority?
I think at the end of the day, 1,400 plots will get us down the road a ways. We got the land for free with Camp Williams, so we're talking 1.7. We're the 14th largest city, 4th largest in the county, and we don't have a cemetery. This is kind of that,
We have to.
we've got to have somewhere to start having residents, put permanent residency.
Absolutely. And the reason that we wanted to bring this to you, Mayor, specifically because we've heard loud and clear that you want this under construction right away. We know that we're going to need to amend the budget. We think this is probably going to get us going. We want Dan and the other engineers to be finalizing and getting going with stuff, but we wanted to make sure that we had kind of a direction from you before we kept spending, you know, planning money or whatever. So, you know, we can make sure that we bring a budget amendment so that we can put this out to bid as soon as the drawings are complete.
I think
And
that's
get-
good, because I know Councilwoman Barton has run into residents. We've been out here for ages, Councilman Conn. They've been out here so long, they don't want to leave, and we're getting a lot of aging population. That's a concern. We get emails on it. We run into people as we campaign. Councilman Carn, I know, got it at this last election.
I really like this design better, frankly, have the main entrance
Oh, yeah.
facing south, because your main entrance is not directly adjacent to residential.
The main entrance is also facing the majority of the city.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
natural flow.
And I like how we're not going all the way through all these neighborhoods to get
Yep.
in. I think this is a much better
yeah.
design.
Long-term for sure.
Yeah.
So I have a couple things. I definitely would love to see, like what Councilmember Carn was saying about the grading with maybe leaving 20% for spoils and maybe a ravine or whatever. But if you look on the design, on the top right corner, you see a small little roundabout that goes into that triangle. Do you see the little white and it's like a little dot? It's a roundabout because it's allowed for cars to go down there because it's so far away from a plot would be really, really far away. Do you see in the top right corner what I'm talking about?
That's a walkway.
A walkway? Well, we don't
Yeah.
have a walkway in the bottom right now because we've gotten rid of that road. We need to make sure that you're designing one in the bottom right because you need a walkway down into that really far corner.
Yeah.
So let's not miss that and have a walkway that's ready to go because those plots, that's a lot of walking on grass.
Now, will these also be above ground, or will they be flat?
Those are things that we'll need to make
TBD.
determination. But again,
I want it.
like, let's hypothetically say that you let the first phase inside the roadway be above ground, and then the plots on the south side be, you know, just flat at grade tombstones. We can make those decisions as we move forward.
Me personally, I would rather see the headstones and then off the roads, then you can go to flat so that when you're driving through the cemetery, it looks like a cemetery. I'm not a fan of the cheapening of cemeteries. There are a lot of people who really do go and visit them and it's a memorial, place of memorial. And two things. And so like you sort of like we feather in our developments now, we would have the headstones and then we can feather to flat and on the peripherals. But in the big flat areas, you need to put benches. And so that's going to be an added cost. If you really are expecting people to carry a lawn chair to go and to be with their loved one, then, you know, if you drive through Lehigh Cemetery, how many people are sitting on headstones? That's what they do. You sit on a headstone. A lot of them made benches. They actually make bench headstones now. So if we're going to try and cheap and cut our costs, we need to make sure we're building in benches and places for people to sit. So that was my last comment.
What are the estates on the left-hand side, the north?
That's
blue,
that's for
the
the
highlighted
Carn
blue.
Mausoleum, where you can, you know,
Do a mausoleum.
do like a mausoleum kind of a thing.
I want to get one of those.
Or it can also be burial space with a marker and a bench. So, and you have planting around it. So it becomes your own kind of personal space
Your family garden kind
for your
of.
Will we
family.
have estates in this first phase?
Not in this first phase.
It's in the back.
Again, that's kind of, you know, do we build only the yellow piece because it's the closest to it and it's the least extension of infrastructure? Or do we go with a much larger footprint?
What almost makes sense to go west instead of going further north.
Right, well, and if you wanted, we can play with those boundaries. We need feedback from you to know which direction we go to.
Because the square is cheaper than a rectangle.
Yeah, to your point, Mayor, if you'd like, we could move the estates down, you know, so that they're down towards the bottom looking out. I mean, great views all over this site.
Even if we broke it up, so there's some estates now, because people today may want estates, and that estates maybe 5-6 generations down the road.
Sure. We can certainly add some of that to this first phase. So, again, from a consensus standpoint, we want to give our design team, so our goal is, if you all are saying, increase the budget, come back with a budget amendment, make some tweaks on the design, that's fine. I want Jeremy and the team to know, okay, we want to try and get this out to bid in, say, you know, April or something like that, so that we can get a contractor on board and be constructing. So that's the kind of pieces that we need today, is going to send them off, and then we bring you back the pieces that you would need to be able to reach the goals that you've set.
I'm a yes for all that.
Okay, Councilman Wilden?
You know, one thing I'd like as part of the budget discussion, this is the finance guy in me coming out, is I would like to see what potential impacts this would have on other priorities. I mean, we get into big projects like this, and I'm all about like cost saving, doing economies of scale, but things do add up, and I like to see this in a holistic approach.
And potential revenues, or potential,
The
what it's
revenues.
gonna, yeah, what it's gonna bring in.
Well, I think the revenues are a wash because that goes to maintenance. So it'll pay for, it's not gonna pay for, none of that will pay for any of the build out,
Okay,
which is fine. So I'm not particularly, if they want to see it, great, but like, obviously it doesn't go into the building of the build
it's
out.
considered a park.
Green space?
Right.
It can go towards paying off the
Well, I'm just wondering
construction
if a wrap
costs.
tax can
It's in March.
go towards this.
It could. I mean, theoretically, yes, it could. It's going to not be active play space, but
So anyway, my point is, where are we looking at with other parks, the library, you know, road projects? Because we're trying to do that, although we're obviously getting reimbursed for a lot of it from MAG and others. But I think we need to look at it in perspective, and if this is the way we go, there might be a potential making some hard choices. Do we have to punt out a particular road project or something out without making a financial restructure for the city, if that makes sense? And how we're collecting revenues.
so again, let me just I want to make sure that we're getting the right direction to staff. If we're waiting to have the full comprehensive budget analysis discussion, we're probably going to be in April, and we're going to be bidding this probably after that. Again, our hope is to have them spending the next few weeks, you know, we're at the end of February, spending the next couple of weeks getting some designs finished up so that we could be going out to bid. So we can do that, and we'll happily bring that to you. I think that will coincide with about the time we're getting into our budget discussions, but again,
My
if
concern is
it's a
if we get
construction
into the
this year,
Expensive asphalt.
if it's a construction this year, we're going to need to do a budget amendment before May or June.
I would like to see us back in a couple of weeks. I mean, we're 6 years on this project.
Well, my concern is if you're bidding right now on asphalt, you get a better deal than if you're bidding in April, May.
Yes, we won't be ready to bid, though, for at least a couple of weeks.
No, I'm
And then
just
it'll be
saying,
posted for
But
a
it's
couple of weeks.
February, but if we waited until May, June, when we're doing the whole budget, we would be competing with every other road project in Utah.
Right, and again, I hear you, Councilmember, we'll make sure and get that stuff pulled together for you as well. So, again, just to summarize, be looking at the budget amendment, come back with what that implication looks like with other capital projects that are queued up.
And I realize that takes a lot of work, so what I'm asking for isn't like to the penny. You know, it's general targets, estimates of what we're looking for, because I know how much work goes into the budgeting and the process, so I'm not asking you to do a full, like, just make your best estimate, and if we don't hit it, like, you know, you'll have to find a new, I'm just kidding. Just your best estimate.
Our next council meeting is March 20th, I believe.
Correct. 15th.
Stan, are you asking, so like if it's not gonna hurt, other things, we're gonna maybe put more budget into it to do the grading, or you just want, in general, do you want to know?
Well, like, if we come back and the budget says, hey, we want to do all this grading, and it's gonna cost, I have no idea, 2.5 million. Well, what's another 700,000? Well, I don't know without looking at a comprehensive budget.
Have to not do.
I would suggest, we'll have the consultant proceed full steam to getting full construction drawings. It's not that much more money to have them do the extra grading. And when we come back to you, we're gonna have to come back to you on in the second week in March, the third week in March, with the budget amendment anyway for this 1.8. We can present you that option in the budget amendment to say, okay, you guys, what we're hearing is, do you want us to bring you the budget amendment to take this to the 1.8? We could also give you an option at that point when we give you the numbers that night.
Yep.
We'll move full steam ahead between now and then,
I'm not saying hold up on getting estimates from,
getting out to bid, right? Because it'll take, I would suspect it would take us at least one more month to get this out to bid as far as full design.
yeah, but if we're, I think everyone gets what I'm
We're
saying.
unanimous to move forward.
But then we would have direction from you. So in theory, if you give us direction March 20th or 18th or whatever, we could go out to bid soon thereafter with a final decision on what we're bidding.
Is the new access road, is it stubbed down in the Springs right now?
Not yet.
They're coming in this year, though?
In theory, yes.
So that is a good clarification, Councilmember Carn, is this still relies on the developer performing what we showed in the active development layer, that white.
Yep.
They still have to build it. They have approved drawings, they have all the
They have
permits.
they have the fire hydrants today.
So we are reliant on them completing that by the time we want to
Just
open.
up there. I went for a run.
And that's the other part of this that's really kind of an important piece, and I want to make sure we hit on this. This presumes that they're building a couple hundred feet of water infrastructure to get it back to where we would take it from.
Right.
So if that's not built, then we're going to either have to close that gap or wait for them to get it connected. And so that's, those are the variable things that we're
And
looking
we're
at.
not
We will,
taking sewer up there.
we are taking sewer down from there, yeah.
We are gonna pull sewer off of there.
Taking
While
water
we're
out.
building that road, it would make sense to put the sewer.
It was built into
in
the
there.
price, if you saw it.
Okay.
Because this office, even though this is a temporary trailer, it would have water and bathroom facilities.
And this is where we can try and partner with the developer to say, look, if our project is working on the sewer, here's, predominantly that would be the sewer outfall for their development as well. And so we'll want to work with them and make sure that we get that, built into it. So again, I think we've got enough direction. We'll come back with the analysis and we'll come back with kind of some based plans.
And in
to
the
go.
meantime, we're going to move full steam ahead to get these ready to go out to bid.
Well, and if I just may, for Councilmember Barton and Wadman, I've talked about this for years. When it's a big project, I don't like looking at the price tag in isolation, because we're like, well, if we only add 10%, we could save 15%, but we don't look at
The impact.
the impact of other things. Mark and the rest of staff are miracle workers and get grants of grants of grants, but,
There's cemetery grants, Jeremy?
I've not found one. But I'll look.
Passive recreation area.
Okay, perfect. So we got direction, we're good to go? Okay,
Thank you.
Voter registration bonds?
yes. Okay,
Chicago.
UDOT Mountain View Corridor Extension Project.
So Mayor and Council, we have the UDOT Mountain View Corridor team. They wanted to give you the information first. We know that you like getting it before the general public does. So this is information that will soon be available to the public. You're going to get it here first.
Unless they're watching YouTube,
Right. You'll get it at the same time.
all four of them.
And you're welcome to sit with the screen if you want. You can stand, whatever you want.
And then I guess you'll have to tell Sarah when to advance this.
He has a.
Oh, you have a clicker. There you go.
The clicker,
This is Andrew Jordan
yes.
with UDOT.
Hi, Andrew.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I thank you for your time. My name's Andrew Jordan with UDOT. I'm the project manager. Joining me and sitting in the back is Boyd Humphreys, who is the deputy director for the region. who covers this area for the department. Like Jeremy said, thank you, Jeremy, for the introduction. We wanted to come to the city council and present three things, really. Project overview and update, the traffic impacts during construction, and we wanted to present options for the council to have discussions on for the aesthetic treatments and aesthetic budget that the city has. So let's see if I can hit the right button. So the project is Mountain View Corridor. We're going to tie in at 2100 North at Redwood Road and continue a freeway-type facility up to Porter Rockwell Boulevard and tie into the existing corridor for Mountain View Corridor that currently extends up to 201 and up to I-80. So
This is the last piece, correct?
right, this is
Of the
the
frontage roads.
this is the gap, and actually, this piece will not have frontage roads because of the access limitations with the DOD facility in Camp Williams. There's not really access needs for a frontage road facility, so this will just be the freeway portion. So
So
we're gonna,
like 3 lanes each direction you're putting in on this?
2 lanes each direction with the ability to widen
To
to
go
a total
wider.
of 4 lanes.
Okay,
So Total
do-
4 each way, eventually.
Eventually, yes, but this first phase will just be 2 in
preserving
each.
corridor.
Yes.
So does that hook into 2100 in Redwood, or is it, as it makes that climb?
Let him do his thing. You'll
Yeah.
love it.
Well,
It's definitely not going to be a Redwood Road light.
no, no. The other parts of this, construction early '24, so we're actually looking to start actual turning dirt in March.
next
And
month.
we'll look to finish in early of '26,
Okay.
spring of '26 is the plan right now. So roughly a 2-year construction season.
The slopes are.
One of the things we'll get into later is there is a detour from March to December of '24, but this is, let me just get to that. That'll be coming up. One of the things we worked with Jeremy and Mark on is the connections of the trail designs for the existing trails and future trail connections. So as you can see here, there's multiple grade separations, a series of ped bridges that tie in near Providence where that canal trail ties in to the frontage road sidewalk. There'll be a grade separation to go over the eastbound frontage road. And that'll stay elevated as it goes over the main line for 2100 North, both eastbound and westbound. And then you'll have another bridge crossing over the westbound frontage road. And that'll get you to the north trail that'll run the length of the corridor and tie in up at Porter Rockwell and the trail system that's already along Mountain View and that north end. And then also on the west side of the west to south frontage road, we'll continue that trail up, bring it across the southbound ramp. Eventually, it'll also go over the future southbound main barrel, and then it goes actually under the northbound ramps and northbound barrels there in that blue color. So a series of grade separated to provide good connection to the existing and future trails. And if you guys have any questions.
I'm just confused. Camp Williams Road, is that just Redwood Road? I'm confused why it's called Camp Williams Road.
Yeah, that's
Road.
Redwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just confused me.
Like I said, we're looking to start construction in March. With that, there's a series of bridges on that westbound frontage road piece that we need to construct in the first year. And our best way to do that is to move all the traffic off of that westbound to southbound road. And so we're gonna put in a temporary roadway east of Redwood Road that would cross the traffic over to the existing pavement.
east of Redwood or west of Redwood?
West of Redwood, sorry.
Okay,
West of Redwood Road, tie into that, to what's existing in that northbound to eastbound frontage road. And then before we get to Dandelion, it would go back to the other side. And that opens up that whole interchange area for our contractor to work.
So the current northbound lanes will now, that section will be one lane each direction.
No, we're gonna detour the bike lane, and I'll get to that next. We're gonna detour the bike lane facility and move the traffic over adjacent to the curb, provide 2 lanes in the northbound to eastbound direction,
Okay,
and then it'll be 2 lanes across Redwood, and then it'll reduce to 1 lane to get in.
westbound, southbound will be one lane
Westbound, we'll go to 1 lane.
Reduces to 1 lane.
for the 9-month closure.
Yep.
It crosses
Okay.
with 2.
Yeah, yeah.
It crosses with 2 at Redwood, so we can get the traffic through the intersection, and then we'll have the space on the other side for them to merge.
I'm assuming your studies show more traffic going north and east than south and west?
Yep, and that's why we did that. You know,
Okay.
we've seen the backups in the morning and how that does.
It backups way more on the blue.
Yes.
Your blue
Yes.
line, whatever.
And actually, part of our first phase is to add additional storage to those left turns. It'd be
Okay.
eastbound to northbound as well. So there'll be additional storage and stuff there to help the
great.
performance of the intersection at Redwood in the meantime.
Because you lose the ability to go straight.
Yes,
And so then you're creating your own bottleneck, yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So that's the first year. The big thing there is that December of 2024, we've recognized the issues we have in the wintertime and that hillside and what happens there, and we have to,
Snow.
it ends up getting closed. We don't want that head-to-head traffic during that wintertime, so we've put the requirement to the contractor that they move that back to the frontage road, to the existing frontage road the way it is today by December 1st of 2024.
Are you gonna be able to put any more drifting fencing in there?
So with the interchange, we don't necessarily have it nailed down where the snow fence needs to go, but we have additional snow fence in the contract to apply as we see throughout the construction
Yeah,
season. We're gonna get into,
I think
we'll go through at least one
Close
more.
it 3 times this winter.
Well, the freeway itself will be help because you had a lot of drifting from the big open space in the middle.
In the middle.
So
yeah.
you're not gonna be shoveling all that and it'll actually reduce the amount of drifting. Your engineers will look at it, I'm sure.
Mayor, if I could, we had a conversation with UDOT recently, and we're scheduling work with them on communication as well as working with police and fire on roadway notifications and other things. And so the fencing conversation will be kind of a different animal, but
Okay.
it is something that we are talking about. So just be aware that that's kind of in the works.
Yep.
Continue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Sorry, real quick, Mark, we want to make sure we're communicating with Eagle Mountain, that they're talking to their residents. A large portion of the people on this road are Eagle Mountain residents.
There will be additional off-peak closures. We're talking like overnight closures in order to get the girders and bridge elements set for the grade separation at Redwood Road. So there will be some overnight closures as we do that crane work, but we're going to keep those definitely off-peak.
So when you're closing that, you're taking people then all the way to I-15? When you're
Not
closing-
necessarily, probably just down to 3,600, right, and around, or pull them off and send them down the frontage road.
Okay.
Okay, the bike trail, we understand that there's a bike facility on the frontage road, and so we're gonna pull, the proposal right now is to pull the bike traffic down Harvest Hills Boulevard so that they're leaving at a signalized intersection, crossing Redwood at a signalized intersection, and then tying back into the system up at Redwood and 2100 North.
Okay.
And that's going to be that for the entire
You don't go
project?
down.
Yes, that'll be the entire duration of the project. The bikes will be
Detour, getaway.
yeah, away from the construction, there'll be other lane shifts and everything. It just, if we can keep them out of the construction area, we feel that's the safest option.
That,
Do you do that, do you do the lines for that as well, or will it be marked with like a sign or something? telling you?
Most of it's temporary signing.
well, that corridor that goes underneath Redwood, that's not, is that gonna be impacted, or are they gonna change that route for bikes? They go from 2100, coming up 2100, go underneath,
Under Redwood, no,
Yeah.
that'll stay open.
okay.
So according to the department policy, we set aside a certain amount of money in each project to the cities to use for aesthetic treatments at each interchange. So the amount for this project is $100,000 at the interchange. Saratoga Springs interchange is the 2100 North and Mountain View Corridor interchange. Lehigh City also has the option for $100,000 at the Redwood and 2100. And Harriman, we had conversations with them. They actually opted to forego their $100,000 for a change in the bridge type for the pedestrian structure at Porter Rockwell Boulevard. So,
I want to make sure I heard that. Our aesthetics package will go at 2100 in Mountain View. Lehigh will have the Redwood Road
2100.
and 2100 interchange.
yes.
Okay.
Wait. Say that one more time.
So.
Redwood and
the current-
2100 North.
Current 2100 in Redwood,
Right?
That's in Lehigh.
that's in Lehigh.
Right.
So it's up to them if they want to
What they want to do to it.
upgrade the aesthetics of that interchange,
That's on them. If
Which they
want
won't.
which I don't think they
They want it
will.
to match Saratoga or look like Lehigh.
Yeah, are we worried about that? I mean, there might be a change with the way it looks, and
They don't.
200 feet later, it's going to be different.
So the project has a project aesthetic, and that's, it has a baseline, and then there's upgrades that can
Upgrades.
happen to that baseline. So we have picked a color scheme that's the baseline for the project. The form liner that you'll see on the walls, and the color treatments, that's all in the baseline for the project. Anything above that, such as like additional signage, a change in the landscaping, rather than like just a regular seed mix, if we go with like a rock or a different type of landscaping design, right? Those would be upgrades to that base package.
It's a perfect example's Pioneer Crossing, when you come over the bridge, and all of a sudden there's lights and landscaping, because we actually upgraded.
Yeah.
And then you go over and you go into the ever darkness.
Is there,
That's-
because I haven't, this is new to me, is there a way that we can work with Lehigh? I mean, okay, I think that was my answer, but,
I'll leave that up to the cities to decide.
I will give you,
Like, we want to put our name potentially on the,
Right.
like, it says Saratoga Springs.
I'll give you a brief
Riverton has that
history.
at
do.
Bangor. It's very nice looking.
and even as you cross over the bridge, there's the Saratoga.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But we can talk to Lehigh.
Doesn't
Yeah,
problem.
this is a little bit of an awkward situation because it's the gateway to our city,
Right.
but the structure itself is like 1 inch in Lehigh. I'm exaggerating. So it does put UDOT in an awkward situation where we would probably have to on our own do a deal with Lehigh because it's a little bit unusual for one city to do a betterment in another city, you know, but that's what we would be discussing. And then this project's evolved a little bit. So it was originally, they were only gonna build the south bridge deck, right? Because there'd be 2 bridge decks. So at one point, it didn't make sense to put our name on the face of a bridge deck that would be covered by another bridge deck. But at this point, they are now looking at doing both bridge decks with this project. So then the northernmost bridge deck would be a permanent face. So if somehow we could work out a deal with Lehigh, and it may not, it doesn't necessarily have to be city specific, right? It could be birds and it could be decorative without being Saratoga, right? Because obviously it's also in Lehigh.
All right.
But that would
Well, and I
be,
think right there, we got to be careful because less than 2 seconds at 60 miles an hour, you're in Saratoga.
right.
So you go from Bluffdale, Lehigh, and 6 seconds later, you're back in Saratoga.
If only someone made a smarter choice on a boundary adjustment.
It was all pre-us. No one in this room was here.
The other thing to keep in mind, right, is the changes that these projects are gonna do to those traffic patterns and what happens with Redwood Road, you know, Mountain View Corridor, from what we're seeing in the traffic, becomes the new north-south major corridor, right? Redwood Road now takes kind of
But the
a
2100
back seat, and then you got the 2100 north,
And
east-west, that comes underneath these.
so the 2100 and Mountain View Corridor is in our city. And that's our $100,000 price.
All right.
I want our name on that bridge.
No. The bridge is entirely, the bridge crossing Redwood is.
No. But we have a bridge don't we have a bridge at
2100 Mountain View.
Mountain View.
I see.
2100 in Mountain View, the one that actually everyone's going to take because no one's really going to be on Redwood is what he's saying. The traffic pattern is going to change to Mountain View. We now have the big one and it's going to say Saratoga Springs.
The other opportunity would be the pedestrian bridges that are gonna cross, as he pointed out, there's a series of 3 pedestrian bridges that staff fought for and got for our canal trail. You'll have 2 smaller ones and 1 center one. That would also be a prime location
To
to
say
do any
Saratoga
branding, because you're gonna be coming westbound.
Into Saratoga
That'll be right over your head, so they are proposing that the center one could be a truss, because they basically said, here's a $100,000 budget. Now, they're saying, we'll cover the cost of converting the center from a less attractive footing to a truss.
The truss is quite pretty.
It's gonna cost more than $100,000, but they're saying, look, we will stretch your $100,000 if that's what you wanna do.
But then we can put maybe in one of the middle sections, if we wanted to put the crane, Saratoga, our logo.
With
like-
conditions, so there's a separate committee, as you can imagine, there's a separate committee that would have to review any recommendations we make, a maintenance committee, and it would have to meet a strict set of criteria that they believe wouldn't be an ongoing maintenance issue or a falling hazard or things like that. So
We'll make it out of steel.
we'd have to, those are all on the table. We'd have to get anything we want approved by the
Right.
committee or
By the
whatever.
I
aesthetics
agree, that
committee.
is a good one, coming westbound and also coming southbound.
That would be right over the center lanes, and that would be very prominent.
I mean, I noticed Riverton's, I mean, usually you don't notice things, I notice it every single time I go under Bangor. It is so well done, it is so nice, and I notice it every time, and
Well, a lot of the I-15 overpasses as you go down I-15 American Fork, they're all decorative. You can see form liners, so the concrete pattern is bricks or stacked stone. It's maybe painted. Some of the fencing does have logos. Now, some of that is no longer permitted, as we were told. We said, this is great. They said, yeah, we don't allow that anymore because it's a physical thing welded on, and the concern is a falling hazard.
they want the thing on the truss bottom.
It has to be built in. It can't be something that's like added, and that could be
Okay,
fall.
well, definitely when they're ready for that, I'd like to have more conversation.
The truss bridge looks good.
Yeah, so there's multiple options there, like we said, the truss bridge over the center. Now, that's a little bit harder to do, what you're saying, Councilman, and attaching different things and doing a name on the truss structure itself. And then you have the general bridge design. That gives you a rendering. We did go try to pull
I think
pictures
that
of what those
We
look
can
like.
get in the conversations early, if we can just take a whole square, instead of having it be a truss, then we can just create that and have it be a whole built-in panel.
Councilman Wilden offered to get red Solo cups and put Saratoga.
If you don't do chain link, how will you do the red solo?
But but like, if we can get involved, we can actually,
I don't think that meets code.
Welcome
you did it
home.
for UVU, so, if you go to UVU, they have it on there, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Jeremy, is this new alignment in our GIS?
Yes, I believe it is. I believe it is.
I'll find it.
And it includes the pedestrian trail connector.
great, thank you. Keep it.
I think you guys covered everything I had. Is there any additional questions that I can answer
When,
about the
when are you, when
project?
are you going, wide and loud to the public on this? And what interruptions are we gonna have on Redwood Road, north and south during the construction?
He just said night closures.
Yeah.
Nightly closures?
No, every once in a while, night.
Okay.
Yeah, just night closures when we start to set the bridge over Redwood
So
Road
night closures and you will be open at,
during peak
5 a.m.
times. Yep.
You were talking earlier when he told us that.
we've been told we're gonna,
This great cup idea.
we were talking about the cups.
No, but I think that it's.
Okay.
Annalisa, are you involved with them in terms of helping when they're gonna announce that we're ready to announce too, so making sure? Thanks.
That's why you got the sneak peek and why she's here.
But you know, yeah, because we want to definitely tie it in well together. And Annalisa, maybe even to get Eagle Mountain on board and tie in with them and make sure that they're blasting the same time we are, the messaging is consistent, that we heard you, that snow is a bad thing, we're working on that, we'll have more information on that later. But this is what we're looking at right now.
Even-
Road closures and overnight.
Lehigh for their flats off 2100.
Yeah, and even Lehigh potentially making same messaging, because the problem we get is inconsistency. They'll hear one thing from Eagle Mountain, one thing from Lehigh, and then different from us, and they're like, well, what is the real?
Always us is the.
Of course, we're the
We'll have a
source of
website.
truth.
Yeah, we have a website, the project website's up and going. We have a whole
We'll
PI
link
team.
People to that.
The whole PI team will be working on doing media blasts and everything.
Jer- are we-
Make sure we're
believe-
linking to that.
Are we on the top 10 blast with Gleason and,
So the
yeah,
question,
this year?
because you're dealing with Camp Williams too, which probably isn't a regular thing. is everything ready? I mean, are they good? And we don't have, there's nothing that's gonna say, wait a
Why
second.
this is taking so long.
Okay.
Right.
They're not allowed to bid projects until the right-of-way is certified, until everything's certified. This project has all been certified from a right-of-way and everything.
They're, okay.
There's not a whole lot.
Environmental.
Going.
They have federal dollars. They
They're
are
happy no one's going off and on.
very strict
this
set of
one's-
rules.
So the
Remember,
one
this was
question I
all
have
state
too is,
dollars.
and,
Huh? Oh, this is state.
This is state dollars.
Still very stricter rules than I have to follow.
okay, Councilman Karn was gonna show me, but this is gonna go, so that those current warehouses, they're right there parallel to Redwood Road. It's gonna go behind them, right? On the-
Right behind those, correct,
Okay.
and in front of the DOD facility.
Right behind, and there's no freeway access to those.
Yeah.
Right.
If you log into your city map, your GIS, I think the alignment shows it all the way to Bluffdale,
Okay.
Because when they sold the people,
under the transportation layer.
Highway, up Farmington.
that's how they sold.
I-15
That's why they're
was
empty.
too wrong.
Can't get my maps to open.
Well, I'm excited. You guys have a lot of work. It'll be great to have that connection. I mean, it'll be amazing how much pressure you're gonna take.
And
on
this
Redwood.
project is 100% separate from the 2100 North Freeway project.
Yes, the 2100 North Freeway project has partial funding right now. Right now, it's currently funded in the
26.
26, 27, well, 27 fiscal year, but July 26, yeah.
But all your interchanges are designed to feed into what they're doing.
Yeah. That's what like Jeremy said, we went from the one crossing of Redwood Road with this contractor and their proposal and the way they did the project to actually do all of the build west of Redwood Road, complete for the future tie-in. And that 2100 North Freeway portion of the project, that project will tie in east of Redwood Road. So everything on the west side will be done.
Not tear things out and actually do it right. So it's
We're trying,
And
we're trying.
And let's include that, like, they're, in that communication, say, it was decided that instead of doing this in an extra phase, they're gonna do these all at once to avoid the disruption. So often we do things in government and we forget to tell the people, and then they complain and they don't realize how much thought, how much consideration that we did up the budget at the state level to do this all right the first time, so that we're not closing the roads down again in 2 years, 3 years. So I think if we give them the right talking points, and Emily's is really good at that, and getting people to start defending the city and stuff, but I think that this is the kind of thing, like, this is huge. UDOT is not known, let's be honest, for spending ahead to prevent that kind of thing. It's like, let's just minimum, let's just get the thing done. So it's commendable.
I think we also need to make sure and recognize Representative Moss, who was hugely influential in helping to get funding for this. And so
Yes.
we recognize that effort on his part and, appreciate all the design work and everything that's going in. This is a collaboration between multiple communities, multiple government entities. And again, we do have a little bit of a decision to make on how you want to use those upgrade dollars for celebrating our community and this project.
Well, and
But
we might be using more than 100. We might actually be putting in our own money.
Exactly, that's still an option to the city to add.
Ann's going to take wagers on how long till our standard heckler comments that we don't know what's going on.
so it probably already happened.
Can I just reiterate too what Mark had said about Representative Moss? He actually has been working his guts out for this, and so we're lucky
Kudos.
that he's fighting for us. So that was a big deal. And I don't know, who knows where it would be now if he hadn't fought like he did. So big shout out to him as well.
Okay.
Anything else?
We're not gonna go cheap on this, Mark. I know you're super conservative. But when this $100,000, that's great, that's a aesthetic. That's not gonna go very far for what we really wanna do. Like, this is a structure that's gonna be there for 45 years before it gets redone again. And so I'm not gonna name a city in Utah that's run down, but I'm not gonna do it because I'm not gonna degrade someone. But we're gonna look like the 14th largest city and soon to be 10, 9. We're gonna get big. We're 100,000
By the time we put
people.
that up there, we're gonna be big, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just giving you a heads up, like,
That's,
Mr. Conservative over there.
that ties back to Councilmember Wilden's conversation earlier. It's
Okay.
part of that conversation.
Yep.
And I just told you how Ann was going to raise funds.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, reports, anything from the council? Anything, city administration?
Yeah, just as a quick fun update, the legislative session is going full bloom. We have some things that obviously are concerns. There's some wins and some losses. The league tracker, we'll send that out to you all again as a reminder on that. Last day of the legislative session is next Friday. And so it's 45 days, almost over. And we do appreciate, though, the support that we've gotten from our state representatives, and we certainly appreciate their efforts. There's definitely going to be some impacts, but this year, the housing front seems like it's a lot less impactful than it was originally shaping out to be. So we're appreciative of that. There's some initiatives that the governor's put out for affordable housing. It'll be curious to see how those bills they've hit, and we're starting to see those, but it'll be curious to see how those pan out in the coming years. But we're seeing a theme this year where instead of them mandating us things that we must do, they're giving us tools which we can potentially choose to use or not. And so, those are always better options than mandates. So anyway, Councilmember Wilden and Wadman have been up on the Hill with us
And-
this year.
Remind me, I think the mining bill for today's discussion sounds like it's dead for the most part. I mean, it always can come back, but there hasn't been a lot going on there.
Let's just never count our chickens until the last
Right.
gavel strikes on the last day of this. Just never know. But we do have those concerns on mining always and what the impacts would be, but hopefully it's not going to go anywhere.
Just to loop back, Councilman Carn and I met with Congressman Owens this morning, had a great discussion about future road funding, stuff for Utah Lake Authority. Also brought up the post office. They're going to reach out to you guys to meet with them and the postmaster when you're in DC so that we can see if we can't get that process and ball rolling out here. It was a good informative meeting this morning. Got a fair amount of information, was able to share quite a bit about the city and what's going on. The lakefront, some of his new duties with the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. See if we can't get some help out this way.
That's awesome.
So, okay.
I do have one thing, sorry. If we can get Tina or maybe Annalise to help with me, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I'm getting now what day is this ribbon cutting and this groundbreaking? And if I can get just like a table that says, and then also like this plan, even if you just have the one where you're gonna be, we're gonna start advertising on Facebook on this day, that would be helpful for me because I like to know when things hit Facebook because then that's when I get my phone calls. And especially with the groundbreaking for the library and City Hall, so.
Next week.
Okay.
I would say, I've been working on a community plan that cover the different aspects of doing that, so I will get that finalized.
Yeah, and then just even other ribbon cuttings, Tabitha's Way is coming up, and I just, because then I look at my calendar and if I'm not constantly looking ahead all the time, then I miss things, and that would be great. We just got a lot of great things happening.
Perfect. Okay. Finance report is in the packet. Consent calendar, I will entertain a motion.
So made.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, do you have a question? Perfect. Does finance want to say anything? You're good? You guys have done really good in the packet.
Done a good job.
Mayor, I looked through the packet and I was like, oh, this is great. And Wilton's like, I think she wants to talk.
Well, I just saw their look of shock, like, why am I here?
Mayor, on that, and I'm gonna blow the celebratory horn. We received notice earlier today that we once again received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for this last fiscal year. So Shalice and her staff, congratulations to them.
How many years now?
I think since 2011.
Wow.
Wow. Next year,
Next
let's do something. 15?
on that?
Yeah, we'll get some information out to
Have a
Ann.
celebration. Do you guys do anything in your department? Do you guys get pizza or do you guys anything?
Casual Friday.
Mark doesn't. Mark,
Friday when they're working, they're not working.
Mark doesn't bring your own lunch for him.
That's
Like,
exactly
so,
right.
I think that, this is the problem with stuff like this when you're just so good that it loses its punch.
But it's a
And
big deal.
it's something that needs to be celebrated. And it's one thing, Mark, I'm not saying that you're just going to announce it at this employee leadership meeting that you have tomorrow. That's one, that's nice. But this, I'm talking about something a little bit more where we can actually make sure that the employees that are in that department are really recognized for, I mean, that's not easy to do. So.
Thank you. Okay. Business item 1, Still Ridge Plaza, Lot 1, or Lot 7.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, so this is Lot 7. This is directly east here, the southeast corner of Steel Ridge Plaza. So they meet the parking, they meet their landscaping. They collaborated with the Lot 3, which is the corner on the plaza, and making sure that their landscape, they have the same landscape architect, so there'll be similar plants and stuff, so it's not just a different thing.
And the roads connect in.
Yeah. And then the buildings, so since it's in the gateway overlay zone, the buildings will all be similar, signage is gonna be similar as per the regulation.
I love how it's like Salt Lake City behind, like huge high rises and stuff, sorry. When they do these things, it always makes me laugh.
And then that's just that's the plaza on that'll be on the northeast corner that they helped with.
What does our code say about using private roads to access commercial space? Because they have to maintain the road. I know we have to get these, do we have anything in our code that helps with that? Does that make sense? Because they're gonna be using a private road to get access to this. That private road, the impact on that road is the burden of the residents in that complex. They have to replace the road. They have to resurface it. They have to reline it.
Oh, no, they won't be.
The training wheels are coming off.
It is. It's the one that goes into the HOA.
No.
No,
This is a different area.
This is a new road for the commercial development.
Okay, good, okay.
Yeah, this just, yeah, this
Because I
goes
already
in
have a
between
concern with what's
two.
happening off Redwood Road there by, because we have a
Mobetta's.
private.
Right, the private
Mobile
road
is,
is
yeah.
just a bit south of what you're seeing here.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
That was my only question.
Okay. Councilman Wadden,
I move that the city council
Oh,
approve.
hold on a second. Question.
questions? All right.
Yeah, he's
Sorry.
jumping the gun.
He's excited. He wants to make a motion.
I
He
heard
wants to
there's
make
no
his
other
first
questions.
motion. Man, you just threw me off my question, too.
Okay,
Hang
so
on.
I'm gonna say my piece then.
They're still moving forward with kind of that monument corner. That'll
Yeah.
be a city welcome gateway. Okay.
Do we know who the
That's,
tenants are?
that's what this is gonna be.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
good.
what was that
Know who the
again?
tenants are?
Oh, that's right.
No, we don't.
2 restaurants and,
So that, yeah, there's gonna be,
There's 2 restaurants and 4 regular.
right.
Yeah, if you want to come up to the
If you're
table,
willing to tell us, yeah.
Just come to the
take a
table.
seat at the hot table and it's all yours.
Kind of a scary place to go, but all
It's better than there.
yeah, better than there. The tenants are, one of them's Indie Clover. It's a clothing company.
Okay.
They're kind of like sorry.
Are they like a consignment? Are they like a consignment company?
They're kind of like that. They let you come in and rent a little booth from
Right.
them where you put your own clothes in there, then you sell them, they pay you back or
Yep.
something along those lines.
It's the
They're-
Amazon model on, yeah.
Yeah, and they're taking 2 units, so they're taking a bigger
Okay.
portion of it. So you can see there's 6 units total. They're taking 2 on this southeast corner or whatever. And then there's a tea company, like a boba company,
Okay.
that's taking one of the units. They haven't signed the lease finalized yet, but they're right there. Indie Clover has signed the lease. They're all in. And then there's a barber shop called Valley Clippers. That is going to be in this west building. It's the center unit of the west building. So right now, there's 3 units completely filled with leases signed, 100% done. And then the boba company should have a lease done next week. So there'll be 2 units left.
And the restaurant, that one of them is a restaurant open still.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
It's the west unit on the south end.
Right.
That one has a drive-through spot, so there's been a couple restaurants that have thrown
You have
offers
some
up.
potentials for that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, Councilman Wadman's excited to
Ready
make a
to go.
motion.
Okay, I move that the city council approve the requested site plan for Steel Ridge Plaza Lot 7, located at 357 East Crossroads Boulevard with findings and conditions in the staff report.
I have a first from Councilwoman Wadman,
I'll second it.
second from Councilwoman Barton. Any further discussion? Barton?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Amendments to Title 19.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a continuation of the code amendment for the bar to residential spacing that was reviewed at the last council meeting. We do have Tim Ryan here. Yeah. From About Time to answer any questions there. Again, this is just as a refresher, updating the existing code on bars. From the first time that we're using it, we noticed some issues with implementing it. This was the option one was the option from last council meeting. We included option 2, which was to measure from property line to property line, recommended at a reduced distance of 500 feet. And we took a look at some of those buffering distances and the results of that. So we looked at all the regional commercial zone properties in the city. So on the north end of Redwood Road, it would allow for potentially 1 in this area, depending on how the 3 northernmost regional commercial general planned properties develop out. Just south of there, Fall Harvest Drive and Harvest Hills Boulevard on Redwood Road. This would potentially allow for 1 in the regional commercial zoned area on the east side of Redwood Road. If a bar did go in kind of on the southern end of the first area, it wouldn't be allowed by distancing, bar-to-bar distancing spacing in this area. So it would be potentially just 1 between the 2 of these areas.
That's because of the half a mile.
So
The half-mile spacing.
Oh, I
yeah.
wasn't here last time, so I do apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Mayor's okay.
Yeah.
So we have 1 mile for storage units, we have 1 mile for car washes, but a half mile for bars. How come it's not a mile?
You know, I didn't write the code originally when it was recommended and adopted. Although if we go to this area, this is the largest regional commercial area in the city. Just for an example, if we put the current half-mile buffer around About Time, it wouldn't allow any more in this area. So I think from top to bottom, it would allow 2, maybe 3 bars total in the city under the current half-mile spacing.
Yeah, I just find it's sending a message, though, that we think that storage units and car washes are more of a burden on a city than bars. And the community that we live in, I don't think that is the message that we're really trying to share with them. I personally think if we've broken up the code, I would like to see this be a 1 mile buffer as well. Then we're gonna be having maybe 2 bars total in our big commercial area. But we gotta remember, this is per the prayer to start, this is 30 years out. We're gonna have regional commercial areas in the southern end of the city, and they're gonna be every half mile along Redwood Road. A bar, you know, there could be a potentially bar all along Redwood Road every half mile. As we add, other city councils can rezone to regional commercial. They can, and then all of a sudden, we're now having the ability on Ring Road or other places that they could have additional bars.
They could also change it to no distance.
Yeah.
And they could change the no distance, but I think, for me personally, I would like to see this be inconsistent with what we've done for car washes and what we've done for storage units, and have it be a 1 mile buffer.
I'll just go on the record saying I totally disagree with that. I don't feel like it's sending the wrong message in any way. I don't know. I think the half mile is fine. And I looked at that and stuff like that, and I'm sure some of us will disagree and agree with each other and stuff like that. But I don't think, looking at the different type of zoning that we have and the different type of units that go in there, I think half a mile is okay for bars. I think that it would work. And I'm not saying I want 10 bars here, but I also know that we have upwards of maybe 40% of the people here that aren't LDS. Can I say that? LDS? Can I talk about religion here? I don't know, sorry. And I feel like that we need to be doing things for them as well. Like, I've heard a gazillion times how many people would like to see more of that here, right? And so.
Are we even addressing that ring of distance?
No, we're not actually.
So,
we're not
no,
doing the distance tonight, right? Yeah, okay, sorry.
It's just
We'll talk about
bar
that
to
next time.
residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question, though.
So that will be another conversation.
Just on this while I'm thinking about it, a sports bar that serves X amount of food, is it different than a bar in the code? I can't remember. I remember we had a big discussion on this years ago between a place that
Only
served
21.
peanuts with beer and a place that served food and alcohol.
The code does not have different definitions in it? State code does have different requirements depending on percentage of alcohol sold.
So it's how they're registered with the state.
Is to how they are in the code.
So for example, like a Chili's, it would not fall under the category of a bar.
Correct.
But it has elements and it does serve alcohol, it serves certain types of alcohol. So
Part of the restaurant only
that
costs
wouldn't
20.
necessarily be within the spacing requirement because the spacing requirement is specific to the bar usage. And so,
The bar usage from the state code saying that they're a bar?
no, the half mile is a city policy.
Okay.
A city policy that's consistent with state. We can make those decisions. You as a council get to choose how far they're spaced. You can be more restrictive, you can be less restrictive. Clearly, there's differing
But
opinions.
Chili's is not in that.
But,
No, it's not, yeah.
but like a Chili's or even Wan Wok, they serve,
Olive
different types
Garden.
of, alcohol. It varies from establishment, but it includes the food analysis, but it also.
But by definition, like, this is for About Time. Their definition versus, say, a bar where you go in, drink, sit at some tables and country line dance versus a sports bar where you're going to eat food and watch a game. Are they two different definitions in the state or are they the same?
So like, for example, a Buffalo Wild
We
Wing.
got the attorney. He's excited.
Well, we're talking about, I'm not prepared to address the state code at the moment.
Okay.
Whether those two are different in the state code and how the state issues a license. But our definition, we don't designate, or we don't specify a difference between a sports bar and a regular bar. A bar is it says a commercial enterprise whose primary activity is the sale of alcoholic beverages to be consumed on the premise. Bars include taverns, nightclubs, private clubs, and similar active facilities serving alcoholic beverages. If you want to make a distinction between a bar and a sports bar, I would imagine there's probably a way to do that, but
I feel like there's
I
a
guess
big
'cause my concern is
differentiate
difference on
between.
that.
the 500, the half mile that you guys are talking about. If you go to a mile, I think it limits some of those microbreweries that have great restaurants.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if we could, but I think there's a big distinction between those two things.
But
But a
you know,
microbrewery is like a Chili's, they wouldn't be considered in that.
We basically just say the primary use is the serving of alcohol. So that's what we look at,
That's very vague.
the primary activity.
That's so vague.
And so we look at, it is very vague, and we look at applications, and this one, it seemed the focus of it was alcoholic beverages, but of course, there's also the food and restaurant aspect of it, and sports events and stuff like that. So whether you say this is a bar, but, whatever it is, Buffalo Wild Wings is not a bar, but they both serve alcohol, and they're
Maybe you used to
probably
watch
very
sport.
similar establishments. That's hard. We probably need to fine tune these definitions now that we're seeing more of these applications come on.
So
I'm not having-
this is the risk compliance guy in me, but I would prefer we stick with state code. Because if we start trying to arbitrate the definition, we're gonna get ourselves in trouble.
So the only thing state code regulates is the distance to what they refer to as community location.
Now, sorry, by defining the type of restaurant or bar or whatever,
Oh.
I would say let's just stick with state code so we don't get ourselves into trouble and legislating based upon the business name. I wouldn't want to define it
I can't
anymore.
remember from our discussion, had we
Yeah.
done some of that or not, or if we'd stayed with.
Sounds like partially, but for me, I would personally rather not define it more, define it less, and stick with what the state has.
So I come back, I want 1 mile when it comes to like the nightclubs, taverns. I'm not talking about sports bars, like with Chili's or even About Time or like some of these types of things. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to like 49th Street or the 90th, the one that's on 90th, and all the bars you see in Murray, right? Where they're like taverns. And let's be honest, private clubs, we do know what that means. That's Southern Exposure, that's Northern Exposure, those are private clubs. So we have to be careful, you guys. We have to be careful with how we're
I'm
opening.
very comfortable with how we're defining bars, and again, maybe we have to go off the state code or whatever, but this is, I agree with you on that, where I disagreed with you before, but Like a sports bar? Like, you guys have probably, I don't know, this is maybe discussed for next time, but I've been to
But it's a
ton
loop-
about
but it's a
times, a
loophole.
ton of the breaks, and they're fantastic.
Because we've listed
to go hang
private
out with
club
friends
there.
And watch sports.
Okay.
That's a hard one.
We're not talking about that tonight, though.
Yeah, sorry, we got off on a,
I think as staff, we could bring back some alternatives to address that issue.
I think we need to before they start showing up with applications.
Yeah.
And it's vague, because that's not fair to the applicant.
And it's inconsistent. By putting private club here, you're also then making that not sound like it's an SOB, which is in our industrial zone.
We would have to look into definitions. When I think of lounge club, I think of like the Chase Sapphire, like has a restaurant club in New York City, you know, so something like that too. So it isn't specific enough, yeah. Yeah.
I have no problem with About Time, what they're doing at all. I'm just, whenever we open these things up, I want to look at the big picture. Thank you.
So can I just ask a question, going back to the 500 versus 600 feet?
Yeah.
Was there any changes going from 600 to 500?
Sarah, could you bring back so it was more difficult to do a GIS analysis on building to building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we focused on the 500 feet that was requested last time, but let's see.
Did we, I guess the question is, going from 600 to 500, did we increase the capacity anywhere in the city and put something closer to existing residential homes? That was the,
Oh, nothing closer except probably About Time. And that's probably the only place that's affected where it's right here on the border.
so I will say, just to move the conversation along, I would prefer the option 2 that wasn't originally presented to us, where it's the 500 feet to kind of stick with what we're doing before, since it, for now, doesn't increase the capacity across the city.
Is it possible to do 600 feet with like a variance clause that allows the city councils to, in this circumstance, because I understand there was a fell through and it's, you know, but again, this is future zoning, future
So
commercial.
when we discussed this internally with multiple departments as staff, we actually came up with a third option, whichever is greater. So that does include 600 feet or 500 feet with the same measurements in options 1 and 2. So either 600 feet from a residentially zoned property measured from building to building. And we did add language to include outdoor patios and seating areas. So that would just be counted in the distance. Yep. And then if it's undeveloped, you know, to the residential property line, or 500 feet from property line to property line, whichever is greater.
I like 3.
Mark?
Mayor and council, I want to kind of take a jump back. When this issue first came up many, many years ago, one of the principal things that the council discussed at that time was when it's coming in next to existing housing. When it doesn't come into next to existing housing, the council at the time had said, hey, if residential housing wants to move in closer to it, and they do it after the establishment is there, that's on their choice. They're making an informed decision. But it was really triggering kind of the question of existing housing. And so this really kind of ties back to that existing housing conversation that was kind of the nexus of how this code was coming about. And so the 500, 600, I think, Stephen, to your question, I don't know that it's going to substantially change the numbers. The future amendments could, but at this point, you know, we just wanted to give you alternatives to consider on how we go about measuring it. We just need a clear methodology. And so staff's recommendation is that we just have a clear methodology to move forward, making sure that we're compliant with your desires.
I like option 3 because that allows it to be more flexible.
In a case like this,
Right.
Well, and it actually, remember, it's probably less flexible because it says whichever is greater.
More informative. It allows people to know what and expect, but,
Oh.
so when they go in, like, they're not like confused or it's not ambiguous, and then it makes it hard to make business decisions, is what I was really trying to say.
Can you just one more time go back to what it says? I mean, what
The-
it says right now, yeah.
That's the.
Right here.
So it says right now, 600 feet from, into property, okay. Okay.
I will entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
I move that we approve business item 2 as stated on the agenda, selecting option 3 as identified in our materials and including any staff findings and conditions.
I'll second that with a
Kevin.
question.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman Carn with a question.
I'm assuming that this does not have to go back to planning since they didn't see it?
They saw,
No, as long as it's within the subject matter of the original amendment, no, because you can change it however you see fit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Barton?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the booster station site plan located approximately the southeast corner of Pony Express Parkway and Mountain View Corridor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a city-initiated site plan that includes a water booster and retention pond. You can see here it's on a 3.87 acre lot that is located in our planned community zone, which is part of the Greater City Center District area, southeast of that intersection of Pony Express and Mountain View Corridor. Here's the site plan for your reference, showing the pump house that is part of this. It's going to be surrounded by a fence. As part of the landscaping on the property, there'll be cobble, and then for the retention pond area, it will be hydro-seeded with plant seed. This is the proposed elevations for it. It's going to be largely CMU with a metal roof. And this being a public utility building, it does comply with the standards in our code specific to public utility buildings. With that, I can stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
Pretty straightforward.
I move to approve business item 3, city booster station, site plan located approximately the southeast corner of Pony Express Parkway, Mountain View Corridor, city initiated with any staff findings and conditions.
I have a first from Councilman Carn.
Second.
Second from Councilman Comber. Roll call, Councilwoman Barton.
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Carn.
Aye.
Wadman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I have business item 4, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code.
Just to give a brief overview, we are proposing 3 under one ordinance of 3 different code amendments presented by 3 different planners, but it will be one motion, possibly one motion unless you want them to be separated because there's just one ordinance. This first one is under general considerations 1913, and we are proposing language to clarify when utility capacities are reserved and that they have to follow the utility capacity policy that has been adopted.
Very straight.
Yep.
Yes.
Easy.
And then this next one, do you want?
Oh, we're changing, so this is proposed to change and allow a 0-foot side setback in the regional commercial, community commercial, and heavy commercial. This came up last year. It was a application that was withdrawn, but there were some other places that were thinking about it, so we wanted to move forward with that anyway. We already have one here. This was, obviously, it's planned community, so it was in the community plan, and that's how that was approved, but
Where's that, is that Hobby?
That's Hobby
Hobby
Lobby.
Lobby's its own,
Use a zero
So
lot
that's
line.
a 0 lot line?
yeah, so it butts up against,
That's
so
why you
when
need-
they have an adjoining wall.
Is there 0 space between the walls?
So it's 0, or you have to have your side setback, so there's no in between.
Oh, there's no in between here. There's like either this or this.
Yeah.
So it just, you can't have long strip malls without, and so this is all commercial zone.
This is just cleaning up what we were doing.
Yeah,
This makes sense.
it's allowing them to sell off each building separately.
So why do that and not just have a shared wall?
It technically is a shared wall. However, it allows them to have a property boundary along that shared wall.
Because then they can pay for their property.
Okay.
And they just have to have different fire ratings for it, since they're shared with a different tenant.
Okay. And the last one?
The last one is related to building facades and specifying that the roof is not counted as the building facade when we're looking at materials and colors.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect. Councilman Wilden?
Just I think I already know the answer, but on the zero lot lines, is there a reason why we wouldn't consider it in the neighborhood commercial? Is that just because it's too close to residents, or?
In the neighborhood commercial, we have a maximum building size, and so we don't want to have those very large buildings.
That makes sense. Thank you.
If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 4 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We do have a need for closed session tonight.
Oh, wait, we have one more. Oh, that was the third one.
Okay,
Motion made for closed session.
yes, I have first for closed session from Councilman Wilden,